Digitalization has transformed the work ecosystem across industries, including governments and PSUs. However, this digital facelift has the data sitting at the core of all the developments, especially for the integration of advanced technologies like AI. Now, for this reason, the security of data and the quality of data becomes two critical drivers of the digital transformation, and this becomes even more critical for the government and the PSU space. So, to deep dive into the subject and shed more knowledge on the subject, today I have with me an eminent guest. He is Mr. Tarun Wig, the co-founder at Innefu Labs. And I'm Adarsh Som from ETGovernment, and you're watching a Public Sector Leadership Series. Welcome, Tarun, to this episode of Public Sector Leadership Series.
Thanks, Alish. Great to be here.
So, Tarun, before we get into this main set of questions, I would like to understand how has been your journey in this sphere where you are leveraging new age technologies to basically enable the armed forces and the defense of the country, and how has been the journey of Innefu Labs?
So I say it's been a very interesting 14 years in NFU. So we started way back in 2010 when nobody in the country was talking about developing products. We were all focused on services. India as essentially was a services sector country. And there was this company where we said we'll develop products, we will not do services. So it was a novel idea, but our focus was very clear. If we talk about cyber warfare as the next frontier of war, then not having your own indigenous products is akin to fighting a war with foreign mercenaries. Now, can you depend upon them? That's the rationale behind starting an FU. And then over the course of years, we ended up working with law enforcement and government much more than the corporate sector because the need there was highest. Like if I talk about, see, in 2016, when nobody in the country was really talking about consolidating intelligence, right? We implemented the first ever intelligence fusion center in a paramilitary force, BSF, Border Security Force, way back in 2016. And that created such a huge, impact. So many organizations came and saw it. And since then, we have implemented the intelligence fusion center in almost every large, organization, law enforcement agency in the country. We work with the revenue department for identifying GST frauds. We work with the police departments for predictive policing as well as identifying a mass agitation before it can take place. We work extensively with defense and intelligence to fuse, information coming from so many different sensors and help them make sense of the chaos which is happening. We implemented our solutions in corporates like Reliance, Adani Group, ICICI Bank. So yeah, the journey has been very interesting and hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, so that is indeed an interesting journey. Also taking cue from what you said, that cyber warfare kind of, it has increasingly being a part of how the countries are taking out their rivalry on each other, or how basically settling the geopolitical matters. In fact, in the recent times, the war news which we have seen, somewhere or the other, cyber warfare was also included. Now, to stay, abreast with the new developments, governments definitely need to adopt newer solutions and more advanced technologies, right? So, in your experience with the government of India or the PSUs, in India, what challenges or what were the key, critical areas that you figured out, that you faced, while you are connecting with them, when in case of adopting newer technologies? So, what were those challenges that you faced?
See, one of the major challenges that we faced while working with government and PSUs is, unfortunately, as a country, a lot of our systems are people-centric systems. So, the head of the department essentially defines whether he will adapt technology or whether he will continue with whatever has been happening in the past 50 years, right? Luckily, with the new generation people coming on the head, there is a strong acceptance on using the latest technology to get their results. That is happening. The second challenge that we have faced is, the government of India, if you look at it, in so many states, I won't like to mention the name of the states, but they are doing the same thing that they did in possibly 1979, 1980, because in 1980 somebody came and said that this is how you have to file your inputs. 1980 may, something started, and we are now sitting in 2025 and the same process is happening. It's just that people change but the process remains the same. Now, suddenly in this environment, you bring a technology, a disruptive technology, which will not only help get them more intelligence out of their data, it will also, to a large extent, show them the worth of their data. Right? So people get a little skeptical out of it. People are skeptical on using the latest technology. They don't know. It's like a migration. It's like a transition in process, which will take its time. But sooner or later, I think all of them will realize that until and unless they use technology, we will always be a step behind.
Right. So you rightly pointed out that of course it will take some time for us to get to that level where we can adopt good technologies and of course make them a part of our warfare strategies or defense strategies to put it in the right terms. Now, these days we have seen that surveillance and security monitoring kind of things have increased further with the onset of drones, and the impact of that has been wonderful. With AI technologies, again, it has enabled further the security agencies to carry out better surveillance technologies. So, from Innefu's perspective, how do you see this change has transformed the surveillance and monitoring, processes that the government or the defense forces use?
I think it was always on the horizon, and luckily, with other organizations adopting it, the defense forces also realize that when somebody like an ex-intelligence organization is using the system, why should we not use the system? See, imagine from their perspective, it's not about whether they want it or not. The question is whether they need it. Now, imagine as a defense force, I am getting information from multiple sensors, right? You have sensors like your maybe satellites, you have sensors like your maybe drone videos, you have sensors which are your assets on the ground which are giving you intel. You have so much of it, and of course open source intelligence. So you have information flowing in from so many sources. As a normal human being, you cannot decipher that information. You cannot figure out a pattern within that, right? Today, if I give you a document, you will read it, you will comprehend it, you will understand it. After 8 months, if I ask you whether something X was mentioned in that document, you may not remember it, right? And an organization, a large organization in the country today is receiving these inputs. A document like this, at least 10 documents like this on a daily basis, if not more, right? So imagine they cannot do it manually. With generative AI, with the Intelligence Fusion Center, how it has helped the organization is that it is fusing all their data into one repository over which they are able to extract intelligence. They are able to ask questions. Today, as a law enforcement organization, I can just ask a simple question, can you please give me a profile of an individual X? And across all my data from 1980 to 2025, whatever profile this individual X has, the people he's associated with, the areas he's seen in, is any contact details, suspicious activities. I'll just get it as a document. So it makes life easy for me. It reduces something which would have taken maybe 5 days to less than half an hour.
So I think this is a very interesting, answer which you just gave me, and how generative AI can be leveraged to fetch better information, or let's say to ease the work of defense forces and the people doing the monitoring and surveillance tasks. But if we look at the flip side of generative AI, I think it's also something which can be, used as a weapon altogether. It can create huge chaos through deep fakes and other sort of complicated cyber attacks, and it can also misguide or generate misguided information, right, if the data is not fed rightly, or maybe someone hacks into the system and fed your tool or your model the wrong data, right? So again, there's a flip side of it. So if I try to get a little more insight into nephews, how you work, so do you also leverage predictive analysis through the using AI again to rescue yourself from AI, something like that.
Okay, now I get the question. So let me three-part question. So I'll try and answer all three parts separately. The first part I'll cover is what is pertaining to us most. As you mentioned that generative AI can hallucinate. So at NFU, when we implement an intelligence fusion center, and we have now implemented so many that we can literally do it with our eyes closed. While sleeping in the night, we will know how to implement a fusion center. So at NFU, we do a lot of effort on the data cleaning and data augmentation, which will make sure that the generative AI framework that we launched India's first large language model specifically tuned for defense and intelligence, right, last year. So we are very clear that the system should not hallucinate. It should give you a response that I don't have enough information, but it should not hallucinate. So there are checks and balances which you have to use when you implement a fusion center, and that can only happen when you really have that expertise, because Otherwise, what will happen is people will take an open source LLM and deploy it, and it may be poisoned. The other question that you asked was in the sense of how generative AI is being used for deepfakes, or to generate, maybe identify vulnerabilities in platforms and exploit those vulnerabilities. Both of this is true. Both of these are true. The thing is that not using generative AI will not protect us from them, right? Because the adversaries are using it. Um, the challenge for us is how do we use the technology to our maximum benefit. See, every technology in the world will have its pros and cons. Let's talk about Google for that matter. uh, the CEO of Google once in a conference, he was asked that you are reading all our data, what about the privacy and everything. So yeah, very simple answer. If you have something to hide, then don't use a platform. See, the idea what I'm saying is that Google is a brilliant thing. If you look at it, it has so much of data. It is Google Maps. Everybody is using it on a day-to-day basis. Google Chats, Google Office, and so on. The challenge is they are reading our data, and we are okay with that. Every technology, including generative AI, will have its pros and cons. We have to live with the cons. We have to understand that the adversaries or the criminals will use the cons to their benefits. But we also have to then figure out what are the pros of that technology and adapt it to our benefit. For instance, cyber fraud. Today you have calls. So you will get a call from, let's say, your wife, exactly your wife's voice and everything, and she will say, I need money right now, and you will probably end up giving the money. It's a AI generated call. That is happening in cyber fraud. On the other hand, we also have technologies or companies, organizations developing technologies to detect these deepfakes. So it is always going to be a catch 22 game.
Right. So I kind of resonate with that. That every technology is a flip side. Of course, there's two. Every coin has two sides. Same scenario. So it's up to us how we use the technology to our benefit and leverage it in a positive manner, so to say. So Innefu is also into retail sector, right? So you are kind of using generative AI as well to enable retailers, to get a better business output. So can you shed some light on that?
We just started in that vertical. The idea is, see, today what happens is, you go to, let's say, a big bazaar, or you go to a Reliance outlet, right? Now, how do you know the return on investment? Not you as Reliance or Big Bazaar. How do I know the return on investment, right? So we did a small case study with a very big retail chain where we, use the camera feed. So today, when you go to every mall or any store, you have cameras there, right? The camera feed actually can tell you a lot of things. It can tell you how much time a customer spent at a particular row in that shop. So, and then plus with your POS data, point of sale data, you are actually able to identify what did the customer ultimately buy. And so you may realize that a customer who's, that a product that you have kept in the last shelf, very few customers go there, but everybody who goes there, maybe 5 out of 6 or 8 of them end up buying the product. While a product which you have kept in the first shelf, a lot of people are looking at it, there are a lot of eyeballs on it, but people are not buying it. So that customer conversion improves with generative AI. Secondly, you have personalized discounts. So see, today what happens is you go to a Brook Brother or some outlet, you will have a generic discount that Brook Brother has done a sale of 25%. But based on your previous history, the system can actually tell me that you prefer to buy shirts of, let's say, a particular color, of a particular size, and in these months you have done your last shopping. So generative AI can actually predict that you anyways are going to buy something in November because you've been doing it. I'll give you a discount in October or September when my product line is about to change. I'll give you a personalized discount on that, and there is a huge possibility that you will buy it. So this is how generative AI is helping large retail chains actually improve their customer ratio, actually predict what the customer is likely to buy, and reduce their inventory.
So Tarun, your answer kind of sparked a little curiosity in my head, and there's one question that I really want to ask you. So, not naming a particular incident, what I just want to know is, like you said, the camera feed can tell you a lot, right? And you can actually incur out a lot of information and intel out of those camera feeds. So, let's say if you talk about a city or a tourist destination or anywhere, right? Today we have in most areas we have CCTV camera recordings, right? Can we use those camera recordings to gather intel on the movement of certain elements which were not supposed to be there, or identify certain elements which could be a problem in the times to come? Is there a possibility or a potential with the generative AI coming to the picture, and we can prevent something that have happened.
So honestly, that is already happening
Yeah.
to a large extent. Like if I talk about our own solution, we are working with Varanasi Smart City and Aligarh Smart City and Chandigarh exactly for this. That camera feeds are coming, and the system, the AI system is automatically looking at the camera feeds and identifying, let's say, criminal elements out of it. In Delhi, in the Northeast riots which took place, it was the facial recognition system supplied by us to Delhi police, where, as per their own records, approximately I think around 90 people were identified using AI. You know that they were available at the scene of the crime and they have passed criminal records. So AI, the biggest challenge with CCTV cameras earlier used to be, which still to some extent in some of the states it exists. You have so many cameras, right? If you look at a state like Delhi, you would probably have 4,400 cameras. You don't have the manpower to look at 4,400 cameras continuously. Nobody can do that, right? If I ask you to look at one camera feed throughout the day, you will get bored out of it. Plus, you cannot process so much of information. AI, how it helps us, it is able to identify that in this camera feed, a person who has a known criminal record is available. So it will just give you a warning. It will give you an alert. You decide what you want to do with that. That is how AI is already helping a lot of law enforcement agencies in the country. With AI, we have actually identified ID deduplication. So there are people, same photograph. Your photograph is available on three different, same ID document under different names, and you are doing multiple activities with those IDs cards. So AI can help you in that.
And are you able to track some imposters through this, if there are any?
When we talk about imposters, so I'll give you a case study without going into detail. So in this organization, there were people who were submitting their ID document to register, right? So they were submitting ID document to register. Now, every ID document has a photograph on it. So we just ran a standard deduplication, a facial recognition, and we were able to identify more than 100 plus, ID individuals where they had multiple ID documents. So the same photograph, in one ID document you had an XYZ name. I in fact remember the name also, but I can say in another ID document you had a different name, but the same individual was available, right? So we were able to identify that and yeah, provide it to the organization.
Okay, okay. So there's something more coming to me, but let's just
No, no,
stick
no,
to.
go ahead. Yeah, we'll be happy to answer whatever I can.
Okay, so Tarun, now I would like to move on and want to know more about Innefu's, future perspective. So, what are your plans further? How are you, planning to further expand the footprint of the company in India?
So in a few, at this point of time, Touchwood, we have been lucky in the past 4 years. We have implemented our solution in almost all the large organizations, and we're generating hopefully good results for them. That's why they continue to work with us. What we are looking at now is expanding our footprint in the global market as well as in the corporate sector in India. See, we realize that we have solved the challenge for the law enforcement agencies. We have understood it, we have solved it, and it's like a solved problem now. But the same technology, we already started making forays in Middle East. Last year, 10% of our revenue actually came from Middle East, where we have implemented our solution, and hopefully this year we intend to expand it to at least 20 to 30% of our revenue. So we already started making forays in the international market, both Middle East and Africa, because they really need the technologies that we have. The good part with us is that we have worked in probably one of the harshest environments in the world. Like India as a country, we are a very unique country. We have a huge population, we have a very different demography in every state. So the challenges are humongous, right? But we have been able to solve those challenges in India, and that actually gives us a lot of confidence when we are now deploying a solution in Middle East and hopefully in Africa soon. So for the next couple of years, our focus is very clear to move into the international market, expand our footprint, and also increase our footprint into the corporate sector. So those are the two areas we are focusing on. Of course, our work with the government will always continue. We enjoy that work, so that will always continue.
But Innefu has a good enough hold on the defense forces and the defense sector.
Okay, I'm not going to answer that question. Let's just say that we work with a lot of government organizations, as I mentioned, defense intelligence, revenue departments, even the cybersecurity part, and we are trying our best to support the nation. That's all I can say. We are trying our best to support the nation in whatever way we can.
But thanks, Tarun. Thanks for sparing that time and sharing all the intel with us. Thank you very
Thank you so much,
much.
Adarsh. Thank you for having me here. Thanks.